And I was standing on the seat in front of me. My mom said I never sat down, I always stood. And I watched as 6 of these tigers melted into butter. And I remember thinking, how did they do that?
And so in that little moment in space, in theater, when you are telling a story and the people are part of that story now, where they feel included, that's the magic.
We work very hard, we work long, long hours, we complain because we do work such long hours, but the result is always magical.
Well, it touches your soul, and you can go to movie after movie, but it's just it's not the same as seeing a live flesh and blood, and each performance is different. It changes, it alters from night to night.
It still sort of blows my mind when I sit in an audience and think, they're up there right now. They're doing this right now. I mean, anything can happen.
You're not sharing that with any other audience anywhere in the world at that point. It's this like romance.
It doesn't have to be something intense or dramatic. It can be something very sweet and subtle, and something that takes a gamble and puts us in a place that maybe we always knew was there, but it took the theater to get us to go with them.
There's a great deal of love of the arts here, and a sense of passion in what you do. And I think that we're a nice reflection of the city. Santa Barbara City College has always been a tremendous supporter of the arts. And the president of the college always comes to the plays. They always come proudly and bring college supporters to the plays. And people know who we are on campus. And you couple that then with facilities, and we've got some terrific facilities. Then you've got this unique mix of students working at the top of their game, community actors who have every bit as much skill as professional actors working alongside the occasional guest artist. And I think that what that always does is it asks people to do more, to work harder.
All right, everybody, ready to roll here? I'll just grab on here and bring this bad boy into a nice conclusion, and keep doing what we've been doing. And we got it? Anybody want to add anything? I think Brian does.
My kindergarten teacher is here to sing.
No way!
Yeah, let's show her how nice we play.
10 minutes.
It all has its roots in a community arts association and the Santa Barbara School of the Arts, which was in the 900 block of Santa Barbara Street. In the center of this complex was a little theater they built, which was actually called the Little Theater.
The community supported this institution. However, when the Depression came in 1929, much of the funding and the people who were supporting it dried up.
In 1937, the First Security National Bank took over the property as the Community Arts Association folded its table about that time. Well, you know, actors are about the poorest people on earth, except those in Montecito, but they love their craft and they'll do anything to get up on stage and perform. And so Doug Harmer's actors, as little if nothing they were paid, actually came up with 25 cents a week each to pay the rent to the bank to keep the theater going. So it kept going for 2 more years. And then finally the bank said, this is it, and decided to level the property and put up a parking lot.
And Alice Schott, who lived here in Santa Barbara, heard about this and thought that this would be a terrible thing for the community. And so she purchased the property and renamed the theater after the first 2 initials of each one of her 4 daughters' names.
We have Alice, Helen, Catherine, and Mary Lou, which actually might have been Alakama Lou, but Alakama it was.
She promoted public speakers and offered them venues. And it was largely as a result of the fact that a pacifist who came to Santa Barbara was refused access to the recreation center or to speak in other public places. And she thought this was terrible. She believed people ought to hear both sides of every story. And so that was a motivating factor, too, for her to purchase the theater.
The Alicama was formed during the 40s. They were actually put together by a man named Frank Fowler, who took very deep interest in this, in the program. And Frank had quite a reputation, and they were sometimes, I would say, a little controversial, but he did get results, and he developed a following for the community theater.
He had quite a good background, both in teaching and putting on productions, and started out very slowly here, utilizing local talent, especially people who were in the adult education programs, to put on theatrical productions for the community. And these enjoyed a great deal of success, to the point that eventually they outgrew the theater here. And so they moved to the Libero Theater, which was a much bigger challenge in terms of the venue and putting on productions. He seemed to fare very well, and then they began culminating the theatrical season with a musical. And these musicals were really the highlight of the year. People really looked forward to them.
My wife had always expressed an interest in being on stage, so I encouraged her to come on down. And after she left the house, I thought to myself, what kind of a husband am I? You know, I should be doing something with her to keep our marriage together. So unbeknownst to her, I came down and I sat in the back of this theater, and she sat halfway down. And I was the last person to audition. And Dr. Fowler asked me, he says, didn't you bring any music? I said, I thought you'd be so hard up for male roles that, he says, yes, but you have to sing on key. He said, do you know any songs? And I said, well, I know Home, Home on the Range and A Star-Spangled Banner. He said, well, what would you rather sing? And I said, well, I know if I try to sing the Star-Spangled Banner, I'm going to forget the words. So I said, Home, Home on the Range. He says, okay. And he said, Sylvia, do you have any music? No. He says, okay, a cappella. So I go, home, home. He says, that's enough. You got the part.
He was not a hands-on director, and he never did get up on the stage that I can remember. It was always the voice from the audience, and I think he liked creating that mystique about himself. He was very dashing, I thought. He was the consummate director because he wore like almost smoking jackets, you know, occasionally. He would have a cravat on. I think he had a part to play in his own mind, and he played it very well. And he didn't get out of character very much.
You know what? Question mark. I don't know who he was. Very dapper, good-looking man, but very reserved.
You were totally on your own. He never said anything unless he insulted you from the middle of the stage to do you better. But every dress rehearsal, he would take out some person and he would just tear them to pieces, hoping that he would encourage him or motivate him to do better. Romanoff and Juliet was a tremendous flop in this community. For that play, during the dress rehearsal, he came to me, he says, Mr. DiLoretto, please tell me that you're ill. Please tell me that you don't feel good. Please tell me that I have some hope for this show. For 30 minutes, he berated me. When he got through, I turned to him and I said, thank you very much, Dr. Fowler. He says, oh no, I can't believe it. Thank you very much, Dr. Fowler. And once I caught him in the closet crying.
From the community standpoint, I think everybody looked forward to the shows. And we did 2 to 3 shows a year. Big, hugely mounted productions, amazingly beautiful sets. Many shows were brought back for repeat performances.
Back then, everybody had a full-time job. We used to go down there and volunteer 5 and 6 and 7 hours after our work week for the theater. We all loved it.
We all had jobs on the side, and we would come down in the evening and we'd rehearse, I think, 4 or 5 weeks at the, right here at the Alacama Theater, and then we'd take the rehearsal over to the Lobero Theater, and for a week we'd rehearse at the Lobero Theater, and then we'd perform.
If you think about it, community theater is a great asset to any community because people of all walks of life get to go up on stage. You can be a stage manager, you can do costumes, whatever your heart has always wanted, and you can do it and have fun at it. And I'm just thinking that one of the most unusual people I can think of for a community theater type project, George Casagnola, who at one time owned the Harbor Restaurant, owned the Wharf, one of the great Santa Barbara characters, was actually up on stage at the Alacama Theater. He was an Italian waiter in a play. And so that's what community theater is all about, giving everybody the chance to go up and play a part as a different person.
You know, I heard about the hiring in L.A. I was in L.A. at Cal State at the time. And I heard that they were looking for someone up here. And it turned out that they were, and I auditioned, or I guess you would say I submitted a resume, and they seemed to like it, and I got the job. When I came up, I remember that they brought me in front of this big table, huge table, with I thought everybody in the city of Santa Barbara in front of it. At least that's the way it appeared to me. There was presidents of colleges. There were a number of other people that demonstrated just how much the people of this community loved this theater and wanted it to develop into the thing that they could be truly proud of.
Pope Freeman came to town. This is about the 1970, I think. Frank had just retired, although he was still in town, and everybody just wanted to meet this guy. We hadn't heard too much about him. We knew he was a PhD from Tulane, and we knew he'd been teaching at Cal State Los Angeles, but we didn't know anything about him. We didn't know about his family or anything like so. And we were all still pretty young. And we took to this guy like moss on a rock.
I learned so much just at the feet of Pope Freeman to take my time, to really listen, and to really engage with my fellow actors. I learned a lot of that from him.
He had, I don't know if you maybe call it a certain wisdom about him that immediately you were just drawn to. And so this is somebody, you know, when he was in a pedagogical mode, either as a teacher or as a director, you just, you believed him. You just surrendered to his direction. And that's what you, at least for me as an actor, what we really look for in a director is somebody that you just really trust.
And top that thing. Oh, well, there's no business like show business.
There's no business like business.
Yeah, right.
Literally, I would go to Pope's rehearsals and then watch carefully what he did, take notes, and then go back to La Colina Junior High the next day and do that with my rehearsal after school. And I read everything that I could find. I was just diligent about it because I was terrified.
Well, what we wanted to do was to put together, using the college's example of always striving for excellence, a theater program that would include professional actors, community actors, and also, of course, students. And this group would be our attempt for us to create and work on some of the finest plays in the history of American theater.
In the late 70s, we were doing 4 shows a year at the Libero. 2 shows in the Garvin during the school year, 2 in the studio theater during the school year, 3 in the Garvin during the summer in repertory. And then I had an alternative theater program that was down at the Alacama, doing small experimental pieces.
Alacama grew out of from Frank Fowler, that Pope took it over, and it was a part of adult education. And there was a Santa Barbara City College theater arts program that was going on over here. Alacama performed primarily at the Libero in those days, and occasionally at the Alacama Theater, where the ensemble is now.
The involvement with the community, particularly since Alacama started as a community theater, was huge. We had a fairly sizable season ticket list And that bled over as the two programs started to merge, and the quality and scope of the productions that were being done by the college grew.
That's the exciting thing about this theater, is that it's open to the community. It's open and available. I feel that they own this theater, that this is their place, and this is a place where they want to go and be and support. And we've been lucky to have that support, and we've been delighted to have that support. It has meant that we've gotten through many a dark day, but yet there's always a sun shining somewhere.
Garvin opened in the fall of 1977, and the first show was Cabaret. It was a joint production between the music and the theater arts department. They provided the pit orchestra, they provided the choral direction. Kay Fulton, who was then the dance teacher at the college, provided the choreography. Max Whitaker directed it. And it was a major, major event. Cabaret was designed to show off the building and to show off the Garvin Theater and what it was capable of doing. And it was, in 1977, very much a state-of-the-art kind of facility.
On my first day of the beginning acting class that I took here, one of the first things that we did was we all joined hands and snaked through the theater complex, came in through the shop, and out onto the Garvin stage. And then when you get out on the stage, there's this sea of 400 or so orange seats. And the rise in the Garvin for the audience is really quite nice. It's very audience friendly. So when you get out there on the stage, you can just see the sea of orange out there. And it's fantastic to be up there on that stage. And so that very first day when we did that, it was like, that set a bar for me. I want to be in here.
The acoustics are incredible. You can stage whisper and they can hear you. You can take small moments, you can take gigantic moments. You can play a slapstick, you can play a really soft moment. You can die and just hold them in the palms of your hands because it's almost like they're enveloped around you.
I couldn't even ask or tell you or Jim not to do something again.
You mean Jim and me wouldn't have to mind you anymore?
That's about right.
Why?
Because I could never ask you to mind me again. Scout, every lawyer has one case in his lifetime that affects him personally. This one's mine, I guess.
I think the largest thing that has always intrigued me about working in the theater, particularly as a designer, is it's a constant process of learning. Every production is a research project. Every production I learn things I never knew before. Every production I'm studying things I never would have studied if I wasn't doing the production.
The magic of theater is a kind of transcendence. It's a craft, obviously. You have to stand in the right place, look in the right way, but it's doing so to have an affect, to make, to let, to encourage people to feel, to think about themselves, and to grow in spirit. It changes people's lives. And how do you get to that point when you begin with craft?
Walter, I'd say our bill is just about settled.
Put in a lot of time, Mr. Finch.
Well, let's see now.
You take it further and further and further until something almost inexplicable happens, until that love happens, until you begin to share a spiritual bond with the people you work with the audience who come to see it, who are helping you to create the moment, to take the author's message and to share it through spirit, through mind, through body, through craft, until some communion happens. And when that communion happens, there's art. And when art happens, everybody involved is changed.
I always think of directing a play as like painting a moving picture. It just keeps changing, and you keep creating different things.
That you look at ink scratchings, and somehow things are generated for you, both visually, auditorily, and most important, passionately.
But what it is a way to be involved in life-size art, or larger-than-life art. So every show for me is a three-dimensional painting. It's a moment, it happens, it lives and breathes for a while, and then it goes away, and then I create another big piece of artwork. So that's what it is for me.
Moments that audiences respond to start in the imagination of the writer. That page is then passed to a director who tries to create an environment in which that moment can find itself again.
When an audience watches a play, they kind of think it's just all happens, but it doesn't. And figuring out the positioning of the actors, who should be where in relation to who, has to tell the story.
What you've got are a series of moments, and you can stop them and start them and stop them and start them. And some moments are more important than others. And so what we want to do is identify what those moments are. What are the moments? How can we get to those moments as cleanly and as efficiently as we can? And then once we get to them, how can we hang on to them as long as we can?
Hold, good. Now, you need to hold something up at the top.
Emotion has to come out of the action. You can't just suddenly be sad or be angry. It has to come out of something. And it always comes out of action. So it is creating the correct action, the correct interactions between actors, the correct amount of time for something to occur.
When an actor says, well, I'm crossing over here, I'm doing something, how do I feel? Well, that's the door opens and off you go and you talk about those things. And good actors will ask a lot of questions at that time. Once the show is on its feet, is what I call working rehearsals. And it's sort of where the director and the actor work side by side. They work together. And the idea is to get the actor off book, doing what it is that they're going to do. They become major contributors to the whole process. But they've got a whole bunch of mechanical things that they've got to learn in terms of lines, where they go, what they say, when they do it, how they feel, lots of things to get into their body. And so my job is to sort of help them do that. And that's when coaching comes along. And what coaching is when an actor struggles at trying to interpret something. And so the director acts as a support system and gives ideas. I use a lot of improvisational approaches to things to help get that moment. And when the two things come together, an actor goes, oh, great, I've got it. That's the moment I want. Thank you very, very much. If at the beginning it was I talk and you listen, now we end with you talk and I listen. And so now we're going to work in larger chunks and more pages at a time, and actors are going to try to find continuity. And rather than me jump in and help on little things, I stand back and I'll take notes, and I will, at the end of a section, I'll come back in and give notes, but on larger sections. Frequently in this section, as a director, I will also ask for help. So rather than say, here's what I think that you should do, I'll say, I'm not quite sure what it is. We're missing something right here, and here's what's going on, and we're missing something. And if you do it right, the actor goes, I got it. I'm on. And they go back, and they recognize, frequently they'll come up and say, well, I'm missing something right here. And then you work to figure it out. Then from there you go to technical rehearsals, and everything sort of goes back, and you figure out all of your lights and sound and props and scenery and all of those kinds of things.
Let's move on to scene 6. So end of this scene, places, please. Places for the end of the scene.
Lighting is sublime in its effect on us. It affects people all the time. We're born with the fear of the dark, most of us. We see a bright sunny day and we feel better. We feel a gloomy day and we feel gloomy. So some of our reactions to light are keyed into just our life experiences. So it's really a matter of finding the life experience you can trigger for the audience that will get them into a certain frame of mood. In the middle of a moment in the play, maybe revealing another moment that the audience wasn't aware of before, and catching them off guard or triggering of, oh, that's what it was, kind of event.
So I think in between, we're going to have to replace the tape, as we talked about. And So that little, what you did with this time,
The little tabs,
the
they
little
came off
tabs that were.
perfectly. Yeah.
To design the show, first I will read the play and get an idea from the director whether they are going to do a concept that is obvious from the script, or are they going to do something, tweak it a little, do a modern Shakespeare or that kind of thing. So I want to know that when I'm reading it, because then the images that come into my mind will be aligned with that concept right away. Then as a costumer, I will go away and do research, then to do rough sketches, meet with the director again, and fine-tune what we want the character to really look like. What is he or she going for in the character? What do I think about the character? So it's a collaboration all the way along the way. Then I will do sketches, final sketches, or sometimes I do collage kinds of things, but as a presentation and a visual presentation of the show, both to the director, so they know what it is I'm talking about when I say a blue shirt, because there's 15 million kinds of blue shirts. And then also those sketches and renderings become the tool for the costume shop to work from as well.
Well, as the shop supervisor, you're, keeping track of your workers, and you're setting up the work schedule, setting up the fitting schedule, keeping track of the budget of things, keeping in contact with the designer to get the look that they're going for. And then we have the dual duty here where we're, teaching the costume class and simultaneously working on a show.
The first thing I think of as a set designer is you need to provide the right environment for the story. So I'm thinking of where things need to occur. When you're doing a box set and it's, it's supposed to be a living room, dining room, whatever, not a problem.
Hey, look, I didn't come up here to discuss politics.
Well, so far you've turned on politics and sex. You want to try religion?
I think I'll try liberalism.
Why are you so uptight?
Now, there's another expression I hate.
Part of my job is to work with the director on framing the world of the play and the world that he or she wants to set it in. And so somewhere early on in the stage, I'm starting to do a lot of research on not only where the play was originally written to be set, but where we may decide to set it and why, to try to capture the flavor of it in the architecture, in the color, in the layout. And at the same time, I'm really relying on the director to give me a sense of how they're envisioning the action of the play.
Primarily, the music director will do a lot of preparation before the auditions. So it means going through the show and looking at every musical number, and then making a chart with all the cast members, and as far as what's needed for range, what is the high note, what's the low note, what's the tessitura, where does the range settle in at.
Did we mention that the Spitfire is the only grill in town? You can own a piece of heaven where the hummingbirds still hum and the colors of paradise come.
Then figuring out if it's any solo numbers, what roles could be perhaps transposed down or transposed up, as opposed to roles that are with other characters that you're kind of stuck with that range.
This could be the one. Glory be when you kiss me. Turtle doves sing for me. Inside, yes.
So you figure out the list of people that can have a interchangeable high or low, and those that have to be tenors or have to be sopranos. So that's a really important part, because casting is 90% of the work.
And the colors of paradise come.
The technical director is the person who interprets the set design and makes it real. And so the designer comes with the information both in two-dimensional and three-dimensional form if they provide a model. The technical director looks at this information and then goes, okay, how is this going to be built? How is it going to be put together? What is the process we need to follow for that? What's the most efficient way to do it? Order the materials, generate information, so like shop drawings to the carpenters so that they know what to do. Because ultimately, it's the technical director who's responsible for how good the set is and how strong the set is and how safe the set is. Once the set goes into the theater, organize crews, figure out if there's transitions or scene changes or shifts or whatever. Usually the technical director figures that out with the set designer and then rehearses it and gets it on its feet and then disappears and sits in the office while the show's running.
A stage manager has to call the cues, light cues, scene change cues, music cues, all the rest, and keep it all together and basically keep the show running all the way through. And being respectful and concerned about your actors and everybody else who's working on the show.
My main focus, once all the show starts to rehearse and gets running and everything, is to make sure that the audience is taken care of. That they buy their tickets, when they show up, their tickets are there, they're ready, they've paid the right amount, they have no trouble finding their seats, they've been accommodated if they have some kind of disability or need some kind of special seating requirements. And basically, we're, in the box office, the first point of contact for anybody coming to the theater. So we want to make sure that they have a positive experience, that they feel that they're welcomed, that they feel that when they come here, they're going to be taken care of.
This show, you have to do all 4 seasons. And the woods were really important. It was all about the woods. And I thought, well, what the heck are we going to do? All 4 seasons with the woods being predominant. And then coming from Rick, who wanted this real cafe on stage. So I have to provide enough real estate for that. And then it dawned on me that it would be really cool to combine the lighting designer and the set designer and create this backdrop where it's kind of a neutral backdrop, so it would work for like winter when there's no leaves or anything, and then have the lighting designer create the leaves through light.
We did a production of the Garvin, a play called Ambition Facing West, which was fascinating in its structure. The play existed in 3 different temporal and physical realities that coexist simultaneously. In fact, there's interactions between 2 or 3 different locales and time periods that all occur at the same moment on stage. And it was a wonderful kind of challenge to build that and try to create a way to let the audience keep that straight, because it could have gotten very confusing.
In Dangerous Liaisons, there's a moment where he has fallen in love with her and he has to treat her so badly that she will hate him forever, because otherwise he'll stay with her. And as I'm reading this, I'm going, I know exactly the move I want. I want her to be on the ground. I want him to grab her by the hair, pull her up to him, and he screams in her face and throws her on the ground. And then he leaves, she cries and crawls out of the scene. I said, that's what I want to have happen there. Right? All this text said was the words that he said. Well, to do that, I got to get her on her knees. I got to set this up. I got to have an exit planned. Right? There's all these things that you got to do. So you go back and you start to put these things all together.
If you're trying to create something like Seascape, where it was a naturalistic environment, then you have to think about, you told me these are some of the things I need to have my actors be able to do, and there's something about crawling around the space, being able to feel comfortable about crawling around the space, and still having it feel like it's, natural. I looked at pictures of dunes and stuff and tried to create, both looking at the floor plan, spaces where people could be and different types of areas, and then vertically what would be comfortable for movement.
I felt like a superhero. I mean, it was really, those kind of costumes really fit to us and everything, and we had this great set to clamber around on. It was like a jungle gym for lizards, and went out there and crawled around every night for the entire second act, drenched in sweat, and just becoming a lizard, and just really committing to that, and not feeling foolish about it. I mean, that was the thing that was interesting, because You know, people would ask me, "What you're playing a lizard?" Playing a lizard, and it's really good, and you're gonna believe it.
Making a human inside of an animal costume is a special challenge. So for me, that was the process of how can I put this lizard body on the human body and still be able to have the lizard movement and have it tied very closely to the human movement, so that when they move their torso, the tail would move, that the legs would look the right way, that everything blends and really looks like a lizard.
We had worked very hard on just the movements of a reptile. And so even though we were going to be these talking reptiles, the convention was, yes, they talk and they speak English, but we're still these huge sea lizards. And so just coming up and having people go, whoa, those are lizards.
Well, I really thought of them as lizards when the show began. I mean, they were lizards to me. And when I reached out my hand to shake hands, it was with fear and trepidation. I mean, I really felt that.
We're in a plank position the entire time. I mean, I had very good triceps at the end of this show, and huge tails, and a very unyielding set that was just cutoffs, and we were supposed to be flipping in and out and down and up and chasing and moving and always being elegant and always keeping track of these huge tails.
And to make the tail move, I went and got one of those wooden segmented snakes that are children's toys and built the tails with that idea in mind. And we cut segments of foam and put, I think we used screen door springs in there to make the tail move in the right way. The actors were amazing, because I always say without those actors, those costumes would have been a couple of lizard quilts, hanging on a rack. They just would have been nothing. But Tiffany and Brian were just amazing in terms of the way they made those come to life.
There was a study done a number of years ago asking employers, what do you look for in a student who has graduated from a liberal arts major, history, English, political science, psychology, as opposed to engineering, where you go be an engineer. But if I'm a political science major, what do I go do? And they said, well, what are you looking for? And maybe we can determine which major is the best. And the determination of the study was that theater arts was the best major. Not because you could come out quoting Shakespeare, but because actors and technicians can tackle large projects in great detail. You also have to work as a team, right? And if you don't get along with the team member, you've still got to figure out how to get along on stage. So there's some sort of collective approach to problem solving. Finally, the next, you've got the use of your imagination, right? You have to transfer something and become imaginative. Finally, you do all of this in public. You do it in front of people who are critical.
Just having people come up and go, that just took me so many places. I mean, I was crying, I was laughing, and to be able to help somebody feel those feelings and to be part of that, that's really the magic, is to take somebody on a journey.
I think acting is a bad word for what we do. It implies pretend. And I think anybody who's seen good movies or good theater will agree that the best acting, it doesn't look like they're acting. It's real, it's behavior. And practicing to do something real and honest and organic, that's difficult. You have to work at that.
Most important thing is to be in the moment, to stay in the moment, and to create in the moment. And there is a kind of simplicity in the work we do. All actors respond, listen and respond, but they don't know that they're doing that often. And they don't know what it is that's behind that. And that's what we try to teach them.
The whole acting thing is interesting because my experience and my ideas changed over time. In the beginning, it was just for fun. Try to do this script thing and do this goofy thing and try to be happy and sad and, try to remember the lines. And then later, I found out there are different areas and deeper juicier parts of this whole theater acting business?
As a beginning actor, we learn the 3 C's, which are concentrate, connect, commit. And so I really try to keep those in mind also, just because as long as you're concentrating and as long as you're committing, you can really, and connecting, you can really master what you're doing.
I think you have a commitment to your company. I think you have that's a job, is to be prepared and to be ready and to do the homework and to tell the story. And your job is to be honest and to be truthful.
Where I personally come from is, this is my world, this is who I am for this amount of time, and it's real to me. It just is so real to me. And these people, I fall in love, I fall in hate, I care, I just am invested completely.
On really good nights, when you are really connected, when it really feels on, and this is what we strive for, really what you notice is what is the story that you're telling, and you really feel like the people that you're acting with are those people, and that the person that you're portraying, that you are that person, and you're having that experience. And when there are nights like that, you don't notice any of the coughing or if a cell phone goes off or anything, and so you're just right in the middle of it.
It was when I had to flash my naked butt in Enchanted April because I was incredibly nervous. I was worried about losing subscribers for the theater. But as strange as it seems, it was kind of remarkably freeing. It's like, if I can do that, I can do just about anything.
You have to gamble a little bit. You got to go out on a limb. You may think you're looking like, a bonehead at times, but there's some integrity in doing that and learning something as an actor in doing that. I mean, if you can lose well, every actor can get up there and scream and jump up and down and win and be competitive. But if you can lose well, you've accomplished something. And I think that's a big deal for an actor. Actors don't think about losing, and there are only a few actors who can lose purposely. And you just can't take your eyes off of them. Now, that's talent.
So it really always comes down to the performer. And so what we do with lights and scenery and costumes and all the rest of it, what we try to do is give that actor every tool that he or she needs to hold those moments as long as they possibly can. And when you do it well, there's nothing else like it, particularly in live theater, because you're there. On screen, it's wonderful. But when it's live and you're there, and there's no smoke and mirrors here. That's the real deal. That's pretty cool stuff. The Garvin and Jerkowitz theaters have both housed absolutely memorable moments in theater, and have for years and years, and before that, the Libero and Alacama. I mean, the tradition of memorable theater here, it sets a very high bar for us. And I think that the new theater will set the bar even higher on a lot of levels.
Almost from day one is probably one of the most heavily used buildings on campus. Between the theater department and the music department, and then other events that go in the theaters and community users, there are times when there's activity going on from 7 in the morning to 11 or 12 o'clock at night, 6-7 days a week. Restoring the infrastructure of the building, there were some serious problems. I remember when the first electrical engineer came up in the planning process and went down to the main electrical room, and he said, "You've got racks down there, they're just rusting out. You've got water problems." And I said, "Tell us about it," because it would flood every winter.
It's a 35-year-old theater. It needs a new face. It needs updating. The orchestra pit was getting to the point where we couldn't raise and lower it anymore, so it was becoming a space that wasn't functional.
We have access issues. The building was completed in 1977, long before ADA was passed. And it had some token efforts to accommodate people with disabilities, but nowhere near what's expected today. And then the whole technology issue, and the technology not just for the sake of it, but because these are crucial things to what we're teaching our students.
Type 2 coming in.
They can learn the operation of different types of machinery, from building machinery to how to run a show. They'll learn about a fly system. They're going to be learning about state-of-the-art theatrical machinery, like moving hydraulic scenery and stuff like that.
The whole process was to get the infrastructure that would allow us to teach those things to students who, if they don't go on to transfer, if they do, they're at a higher level, but if they don't go, can go out and get work.
The new theater technically will have all new theater systems. So the rigging, things that fly in and out, all new lights, all new sound, a new orchestra pit that's a hydraulic pit that you can put, people on it and drop them out of sight if you want to. We will also have moving lights that can create some of those interesting looks that you've seen in concerts and those kinds of things. But we won't lose all the things that made the Garvin wonderful, which is that wonderful seating where every seat is a good one, where seats are comfortable.
It's going to be the same experience, but better. Just some of the basic things is the bathrooms are going to be bigger. So standing in line in the ladies' room is not going to be as long. There's going to be better amenities in the lobbies. We're going to have a concession stand. And hopefully by that time, we may be into computerized ticketing, which will make purchasing tickets a little bit easier and a little bit more open-ended as to when you can do it. So on the internet, you might be able to do it in the middle of the night in your pajamas.
We're really bringing the whole operation up into the 21st century in many, many ways. The technology they won't see, they'll simply see the effect of it. And that will be simply the expansion of our capability to do more complex shows, to do more complex effects, to create faster scene changes. They'll be seeing and coming to as warm a theater and as inviting a theater as they've seen, with wonderful sightlines and wonderful access.
No, then you'll be on directly, all right? All right.
They call me all the time and they say, now that we're out of the building and they're having to wait, we missed you, we want to come, we so much want to be part of your group because we're always having such an experience when we come to the theater. It's you give us so much that we miss it. So I think that when we go back into the new building and everything, it's just going to be so overwhelming for the audience to be able to come back and be part of this group again.
I can't imagine doing anything else. In fact, there's been many times in my life when I've said, okay, I can't do this anymore. I can't make a living doing it. It's just crazy. I've got to stop. I'm going to do something else in my life. And I couldn't do it. I always came back to doing theater.
So easy to really get to know people as you're working together and all working on a common goal. I think that's one of the things I just love so much about it. Everybody working towards one common end.
It's the only thing I know that is a unification of the human being, really. I don't know of any other sport or activity that does that.
It's just a great kind of way of life, and it's been a great experience, and one I would not trade for anything.
It's also, in this case, like raising a child. I've been here for quite a long time. The program now is so vastly more developed than it was 35 years ago. And the child grows up and you hand them off to the world. And in this case, you hand them off to younger colleagues who will hopefully take it further.
I think we have been extremely lucky. We've had wonderful people. We've had just a great opportunity, wonderful administrative support. That's really what has made it all possible. The administration got behind it. Then we had lots of help from the community, and they thought of this theater as their theater. And that support is what made this thing work.
It just feels to me like all the stars are aligned for a really exciting, not just a reopening, but I think a whole renewal of what the Alacama and Santa Barbara City College Theater Group have always been.
I gained a family, a new family. My parents both passed in the first few years that I was back here. But in that time, I met people doing the show and these shows that became, I cherish them as much as if they were my family.
It still is such a commitment and team effort towards creating this that you don't feel, you feel you really don't have the option to let anybody down. So you still have that, whether you're pulling the team of horses or you're being pulled, you're all getting there together.
It's given me confidence, and it's given me given me my family, my wife. I met in a production of West Side Story. She was in the orchestra pit, and so I have no complaints.
Sometimes you're flying, and it may only be a few times that you're flying, and it's like you were on stage for like maybe 7 seconds and you were there for like 14 pages of dialogue, but it felt like you were flying. And that's happened to me like half a dozen times in my life, and it makes the last 42 years worthwhile.